this is Chris. It's quite daunting. What did you take away from the podcast, if you managed to listen, before I kind of share some of my thoughts with you? Let me know in chat. Did you manage to? Maria, I'm going to talk about that DJ voice because obviously I know Sarah really well because I've known her for like 20 years, and I know what makes Sarah nervous, and I know what Sarah's nervous laugh sounds like. And when Chris, who she was already a bit nervous because he deals in conflict. That's Sarah's confidence gremlin. Conflict is like her worst nightmare, and this guy deals in it. He's an hostage negotiator. He deals in conflict for his day job. So I knew that this was not going to be Sarah's the most comfortable conversation she'd ever had. And when he started using the DJ voice, which for anyone that hasn't listened is how he influences people with a low voice, and she laughs nervously. I knew exactly what she was like going, this is the most awkward conversation I've ever had in my life. I knew she'd be thinking that. And she said to me afterwards, she was like, got a bit sweaty, which I thought was quite an intimate bit of information I just shared with you there from Sarah. Anyway, what else did you take away? Late night hearing doesn't come across in the book. Understanding the other person's point of view first, that kind of seeking to understand before seeking to be understood. I thought that was really interesting. Victoria, what can I add of value? I thought it was interesting. At the very end of the podcast, he talked about his best piece of career advice being like what's of significant strategic importance to the organization, and what can I do to support it? So really kind of thinking about how do you latch on to what's important to give yourself that more kind of position of power. I thought was quite interesting. Lots of you are listening. This is brilliant. Roger, I thought that was really interesting. Both parties don't deal logically but emotionally, even when they say they are being logical. That actually we're all slightly irrational. And even when we've got lots of data and lots of facts, there's often quite a lot of emotion below the surface. That's quite interesting. I watched this masterclass. He is intense. I think he is quite intense. Even that face is quite intense. And Jack says, call out the elephant in the room. I like that as well. I've put that point on the pod sheet, so if anyone hasn't got that, I'll kind of reiterate it in a moment. So wanted to get some insights from you, but before I kind of share, what I did want to do is understand where we sit on a bit of a scale. I thought it might be interesting to see on our own self-perception of our negotiating ability. This is a very scientific scale, going from awful to amazing, with average in the middle. I thought as a community, it'd be useful to see where we think we sit on this scale. Thank you, early star people. New people to Pod Plus, what we're going to do is put stars on this scale. The way that we do it is if you go towards the top of your screen, you should see something that says view options. If you click on that, you'll get to annotate, and then you'll see a little toolbar pop up that says stamp and star, and Sarah from the team has put how to do that in chat as well. So it's view options, annotate, stamp and star. Where do we think we are? It's interesting. 2 clusters, everybody, 2 very specific clusters here. Anyone who's sitting outside of these clusters, does anyone think they're amazing? I mean, or slightly amazing? We've got 2 clusters. Got an average cluster and an awful cluster. How to feel great about your skills, hey, on a Thursday morning. So no one thinks they're brilliant. It's not that I'm surprised. It's just that given that it's such an important career skill, it's not great, is it, that none of us are saying we're good at it? Like negotiating for what you need, we think about all the stuff that we need at work. When we asked our Instagram community, they were talking about, flexible working, or it might be about where you're spending time at work, like the projects you're spending time on, or, remuneration. Like actually negotiating for what we need is a big part of us being happy at work and individualizing our jobs. Yet none of us are really identifying as being particularly good at it, apart from maybe that 1 star there. Someone's like, maybe I am. I would probably put myself, I don't think I'm very good either. I struggle with it. So I was kind of listening intently to things today. Before I share my tips, I did want to kind of get a bit of insight from all of you. So let me just take those away for a second. I thought it might be useful to share any memorably good negotiation experiences you've had. I thought I would share one of mine and then maybe get you to share in chat as well. So any times that you go, even if you don't put yourself on the amazing scale, any times that you go, actually, I did negotiate and there was a really good outcome. I did do a good job on that occasion. So I'll share one of mine, and I'd love to hear some of yours in chat, or you come off mute and share. So I think, even though I don't think I'm a very good negotiator, one of the times that I think I negotiated well was when I was on maternity leave with my first child, Henry. And whilst I was on maternity leave, I applied for an MBA. Well, it was a competition, actually. It was a competition for the Financial Times to win the funding for an MBA. I wish it was winning an MBA. Unfortunately, there were 3 years of effort that were required afterwards. But I didn't win first place, which was full funding. I actually won. They created like this random second place for me that I didn't realize existed. So they basically gave me half the funding, and I had to find the rest because I didn't have the money to just fund the rest of the MBA. And so I negotiated with my employer, Virgin, at the time, and unlocked the rest of the funding. And the reason that I look at it as a positive thing was I got the funding, and also I think the thing that I did well in that negotiation was that I didn't expect an immediate answer. And I think sometimes with negotiation, we expect to go into a conversation and get the outcome we want straight away. And what I did with Virgin was I sort of planted the seed, which is I'd got this opportunity. And I said, to my manager, a guy called James, I was like, can you go away and explore this and let me know what the options are? And then it took a few discussions. But I think the fact that I wasn't, I need an answer now, but that I said, oh, could we create some options and could we talk in a few days? That enabled us to get to a solution that I'm not sure I would have got to if I was forced, and I would take that learning away for the future. So that was my good one. What have we got in chat? Let's have a look. Let me stop that and see some of your brilliant things. Oh, thank you. Thanks for getting, yeah, I know, second place. I was like, it's a random second place. So what have we got here? Elizabeth, negotiating to getting coach funding. Brilliant. Yeah, I think that's negotiating for your learning is a really good example of some of the things that we get to at work. Negotiated an enhanced redundancy package after a project. I'm not sure it was brilliant. I think they want to be gone. Well, Tanya, whatever gives you a position of power, I mean, leverage that, even if it was that they wanted you gone, which I don't know if they did, but I don't know enough about the situation. Thank you, Kate. Negotiated compensation after an airline screwed up our hotel booking. You just reminded me, Steve. We went on a Disney cruise ship, which is an entirely different story, but loads of people in my family got ill from the Disney cruise ship. I don't think that's a very normal thing, but it happened to us on that occasion, pre-COVID, everybody. And we negotiated for loads of free stuff. They sent my children, like, I mean, every Disney plush toy possible. We've got a lot of Disney toys in our house now as a result of getting sick on a ship. Got a transfer from marketing to finance. Sean, I really like that as an example of kind of sort of squiggly negotiation, being able to squiggle around. Yeah, and an interesting move as well, as Roger says. Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. Let's do this one. Has anyone got any examples of sort of memorably bad negotiations? Either when it was just like, I don't know, it just felt really awkward. I don't know, maybe it was a training session where they made you do some awful role play, or maybe it was a negotiation that just went a bit wrong. Let's share some of those with each other. Steve, any memorably bad negotiation experience? I'll give you one of mine. So the first time I got kind of taught about negotiation was when I worked at Procter & Gamble, and I was doing like a sales role, so they teach you all kinds of stuff there. But one of the things they taught us to do was to, I think it was, did you remember those Vicks things you stuck up your nose? Do you remember, like, you sniff them to like clear? Anyway, we had to go into shops around London, like corner shops, and try and sell them a case of these Vicks things that you stick up your nose, and negotiate with them on a price. And it was just awful. Like, I don't really like the idea of sticking this thing up my nose. So I don't think I really believed in the product. And I was just going into these shops and trying, it was just awkward. I didn't believe in what I was negotiating for, which I actually think is a bigger insight. And nobody in these shops in London wanted to talk to me. It was just awkward. It was horrendous and didn't give me a very good experience. Claire, all negotiation feels awkward. Well, let's see if some of our tips can help. I failed to convince a line manager of flexible working. Thankfully, it was back in 2013. Well, maybe, Elizabeth, maybe the context has changed now. Maybe if you did it again, they might be better. Find it hard to negotiate successfully, which doesn't end in a compromise. Yeah, we're going to talk, Sian, about some different approaches, compromise being one of them. I went into a negotiation a while ago and had some of Chris's gold. My counterpart shut me down and I couldn't think on the fly. Need more practice. Yeah, I think when you're kind of met with that aggression back, you're like, oh, it's quite scary. I tried to leverage a job offer for promotion and it took 5 days of higher up considering, and I had to accept the new role. Yeah, I think every job interview is negotiation. I wonder actually if we really thought about negotiation as a conversation with somebody else about something that I want. I wonder actually how much practice we're getting. We're probably getting more practice than we think. Okay, so lots of different things there. Let's talk about any tips or tricks that you've got, because again, I do have some things prepared, but what things have either you been taught or any things that have helped you before I share some of the insights that I have got for you, some additional things to the podcast. Are there any things that you have been taught about negotiation that particularly helped you, or any tips or tricks that you've picked up along the way? Let me know in chat. Yeah, give it a go. I think that's a really good one, Tiff. Like, kind of what have you got to lose by trying something else? Yusuf says both parties need to feel like they're leaving a negotiation for a winner for it to be effective. I really like that one, Scott, about the being curious, hear the other side, understand their goals. Yeah, one of the things that I'll come on to is the sort of idea of, I'm not sure I like the phrasing of it, but Chris talked about tactical empathy. I mean, I've kind of just feel like empathy. I don't know why it has to be tactical, but I guess it's sort of intentional empathy is probably a phrase that I might prefer a little bit, to understand where they're coming from. I like Jenny. Shoot for the stars. Ask for more than you want, so you can accept less. Think about what the other party. So quite a lot of kind of putting yourself in the other party's shoes. To pick up the hidden emotional elements. Okay, that's resonating a lot of us. Clarify what your no-goes are. Yeah, that's a useful thing for you to, even if you're clarifying that to yourself. And Frida, the win-wins. Yeah, start with the why. How wise. You've got loads of tips here. Adam did the masterclass, which is amazing. The concept of tactical empathy is about listening to people and making them feel that you understand them. Yeah, absolutely. So I even saying like, I hear you, playing back things, what people are saying, checking in that you understand their perspective. So Adam, this is what I think I'm hearing. Is that correct? To kind of just repeating that. Also, using somebody's name is a really good way of making somebody feel heard. Yeah, good tips in there, Adam. Thank you. I wasn't intentionally using your name there, but you get the idea. All right, let's dive into a few extra things and let me know whether you're familiar with these or whether you've got any builds on them. Does anybody know why I have got a picture of a salami on the screen? I do not eat meat. I do not particularly like the thought of meat. So this is, so I've done this for you. Does anyone know why I have a picture of a salami on a screen? Any ideas? Slices. Yes, slices. Yes, a salami and some slices. Mature. I don't know where we're going with this. Well, I do. A slice at a time. Yes. Okay. So I was taught the salami strategy of negotiation, along with BATNA, which was debunked in the conversation. I was also taught in my negotiation training the salami strategy, and you can Google this. It's a thing. But the idea here, concept is, if you're going into negotiation and you ask for the whole salami. So if I kind of go, I want to get a promotion, for example, that's like the whole salami. It might seem quite big and somebody might not be able to give you that whole thing. So the idea is that you think to yourself, like, what are small wins that I could get to? Like, so basically not the whole salami, because if you go for the whole salami straight away, can I have a free salami? Someone's probably going to say no. But if you say, oh, could I have a slice? Could I try it? And another slice and another slice, you can kind of incrementally get the whole thing. So for example, like a work thing might be, let's say I want to change my working hours and I think my manager's not going to be up for that because we're like that we're really busy at the moment and we're understaffed, and the last thing that my manager wants me to do is work a 3-day week. Let's just say that. What I might say to my manager, what I might do first of all is talk about changing my hours for a month. So I might be like, okay, what I'll do is I'll say, over the next month, it's summer holiday, I'm juggling with my children. One of the things that would really help me would be to change my hours over the next month. Could we do that as a trial? And they might say yes. And then I might say, brilliant. And then could we have a review at the end of that to see what we could put into place afterwards? And they might say, okay, fine. And then I might say, and then obviously there's 6 months left of the year. And so it'd be really good to understand how the projects that I'm working on, we could maybe review those in light of a variation to maybe my working hours. And basically I've talked that through very quickly, but you get the idea. You're kind of slicing towards the big thing that you want, and you can kind of get incremental agreement. Again, doesn't have to happen all in one conversation. You could get the first win, and then the next week you could go for the next one and the next one and the next one. I have done that with learning before, where the first thing that my first slice has been funding, and then my second slice has been time. So I basically, slice one was, can I get some funding to support this course I want to go on? And then got that agreement. And then slice two was, could I take like an afternoon a week for the next period of time to go and invest in that learning? So that ultimately what I've ended up with was my employer both paying for my learning and giving me the time to do the learning. Whereas perhaps if I've asked for it all in one go, it might have felt like quite a big thing for them to agree to. So that is the Salami strategy. Any reflections or questions on that? Anyone tried it before? Anyone see how it might help them? Just pause before I move the picture of the meat on. I'm going to try it. Yeah, just break it down. I think it's really useful to sort of think before you go in, what would those slices be? And the research, when you look into this a bit more, they say go for the hardest thing first. Because once someone, so like for me on the learning thing, it would be the money. That would be the biggest barrier. They say kind of go for that first and then kind of add on afterwards, because they already feel like they've conceded quite a lot. Yeah, maybe kind of break it down. Brilliant. Okay, let's move on to another one. These are two that when I was listening to the podcast, I thought Chris was really good, but I wanted a few more like short actions. So I did a bit of research afterwards, and these are two that I put into the pod note, which I thought were quite interesting. The first one I liked, which was concede when you need. So I think sometimes we think about conceding as weakness, like we've lost something. So if I go in wanting to negotiate for a change to my working hours and I don't get it, then we might think, oh, that's a point of weakness, or I have failed. Whereas I quite like this, like the more empowering position of conceding when you need to. So like conceding intentionally. And when I was researching this, there were two types of concession that I thought were nice little tactics to try out. So there was reciprocal concessions, which you can see there, which is the if I then you. So I might say, okay, I'm going to have to concede here to get Ellen on board, for example, but I might say, okay, Ellen, what about if I trialed this out for a few weeks, and then you took the insights to HR to propose a way forward. Like, I'm again making that up, but it's this idea of, if you could do that, the if I then you, could you open a different kind of direction for the conversation to go in, which I quite liked. And then there's the contingent concession. So let's say Sarah has done this a lot, actually. My Sarah, my Sarah claimed her. She's claimed, but Sarah's done this a lot. So when she's been turned down for certain things, like job opportunities or promotions that she's gone to, what she has done is, when she's had the sort of rebuttal, so we can't do that at the moment, Sarah, what she has gone back to is a contingent kind of concession. So she said, like, well, what about when we have that person coming to the team in that role, could we then relook at this opportunity? So she's kind of almost created a trigger so that the negotiation can come back on the table. Because when someone's trying to take it off a table, like, Helen, that's not possible, we don't have any funding, you're not able, no one has ever moved from marketing to finance before, whatever it would be. What you could say is, okay, well, when we come around to planning at the end of the year, could we relook at this conversation to see how it could work? So you almost create a trigger moment for the conversation to come back on the table. So when the situation changes, you can restart the discussion. So I quite like that one, particularly if someone's pushing back on you quite hard. Rather than feeling like you failed, you might just feel like, oh, could we just pause this discussion? So I quite like that one. This links to, Victoria says, this links to knowing what the bottom line is, the no-goes, as Scott says. Yeah, well, like that, the agreement zone and conceding zone. Oh, I feel like there's a model in there somewhere, Victoria, with circles and zones. You should definitely do that. The other thing, this is the one that a lot of you have mentioned. So this idea of the kind of empathy point. So seeking first to understand. And as I said, I don't really love, I think I might just be sensitive to this idea of like tactical empathy. I just think this is intentional empathy. Like I am going to intentionally understand what is driving this person. To the point earlier about us all being irrational, let's accept that and try and understand the emotion behind it. If we are all irrational, then let's understand, how do you feel about this? What would good look like? Those sorts of questions so that we can like actually understand some of the empathy a little bit and sort of build the rapport. That rapport gives us the influence that we're looking for. Any thoughts on either of those, the conceding or the tactical / intentional empathy, before we go on to the matrix? Yeah, I feel like I could prepare for the concede options prior. Yeah, me too. And I feel like it would just give me a bit of control. Like if I felt like the conversation was going, like maybe I'd tried the salami approach and they're like, no salami for you, Helen. Then I feel like maybe I could have like these little conceding tactics and be like, okay, we're not winning over here, so let's try the reciprocal one. What about if I did this? Could you then do that? That sort of thing. I think it almost makes it feel a bit more playful. And I wonder if you do this as if in your mind you reframe this as kind of experimenting with a few tactics, or maybe sort of playing with this a little bit, it might seem less scary or daunting. Don't know. Love the idea of the contingent zone. I think, Victoria, you definitely need to create this model. This contingent zone could definitely work for people. Yeah, test and learn with the conversation, exactly, and see what works for different people. My last thing for you is the matrix. And this is how to think about your insight, so how much you know about a person or situation, and how much influence you might have with a person or in a situation, and then adapt your negotiation approach accordingly. Okay, so let me explain. So our two kind of axes down here, what should I draw it with? I'll do it with yellow. So down here we've got influence, which will either be low or high. And over here we've got insight, so how much you know about a person or a situation, which will either be low or high. And then what we want to do is take a slightly different tactic to negotiation depending on where we are. So for example, this one down here, if I go to this box here, don't know why it's doing that, everyone. Why are we doing that weird thing? Who knows? But this box down here, so you've got low influence and low insight. I think the primary thing that you want to do here is to be kind of in learn it all mode. So you don't know a lot about somebody, you've not got any kind of real power. That's where we need to get that empathy and understanding. What's important to you, kind of what matters, what would good look like, what do we already know, all of the things that we've kind of talked about. I think you don't have a lot of influence, you don't have a lot of insight, just default to like listen and learn it all mode. Up here, see what it does with colors up here. I don't know why it's doing that. Up here, I think this is where you've got low levels of influence. So you've not really got necessarily a lot of power over this situation. And maybe they're quite a senior person, maybe they've got quite a lot of control. But you do know quite a lot of stuff. Like you have done your research. You've maybe got a bit of information about how the company works. Maybe you know that somebody else has already done this and it's worked for them. I think a really good thing to do here is to just try out the salami. I think this is where you go into salami mode. You just try it out. You do a bit of bargaining. You do a bit of the kind of reciprocal kind of concessions. Because what have you got to lose? You've not got a lot of influence, but you do know quite a lot about the situation. So I think that's a good position there to try out the salami mode. This one down here, Why are we doing this weird colouring thing? This is where you've got a high level of influence, but you've got a low level of insight. So maybe you've got quite a lot of power. Maybe you've been there for quite a long time. Maybe you're more senior. Maybe, whatever it is, you've got a level of influence over this situation. You've got quite a lot of power, but you've not got that much insight. So you don't know anyone who's done this before. You don't know if they're going to say yes. You don't really know what's driving that person. I think here, go into trial mode. So, and I think you can be quite directive. So I might say, look, what I think would be a really good way forward would be to trial this out. And then we could maybe get together, collect a bit of data on what's working, what's not working, and then maybe we could review that in a couple of weeks' time. If you've got influence, being directive about sort of a trial. Why don't we just trial this way of working out? Why don't we trial me spending 20% of my time over here? And then you can get kind of more, you can say to someone and we'll get more insight. So I think that could be a useful approach there. And then if you're up here, really annoying me that those colours are doing that. If you're up here, then I think the role to do is to sort of really, really lead it. Now, what Chris talks about in the podcast is he talks about summarising the other person's position and how that can give you quite a lot of power. So if you've got a high level of influence and you've got a high level of insight, then just lead that negotiation. And I think what he suggests is you might say, look, Sarah, one of the things I want to talk to you about today is my future in the organisation. And then you say, now I know from your perspective that X, Y, and Z are a concern. And you basically preempt all the objections that they could come up with. It's sort of like taking the wind out of their sails. And that gives you then you can really kind of lead that conversation. So sort of my model, my thinking, bringing together a few of the different things that we talked about in a slightly messy diagram. I apologize. Maybe what I'll do is I'll put a neater version of this on Instagram for people that doesn't have all these weird lines on it. But I don't know how you think about that, whether that feels helpful or an approach. I know we're end of time now, but what do you think about kind of the influence and insight? Very practical and artsy. Thanks, Maria. Intentional. It's not. I don't know what's going on with that picture. I will draw the neater version of it and put it on Instagram for you. So have a look there. So we are at the end of time now. The pod sheet has got the summary from the episode. So if you haven't got a chance to listen, or you think, oh, I'd like a practical takeaway, you can just get that on amazingif.com. You can also sign up for Podmail, which comes every Tuesday at about 8:30 in the morning and has all the links to stuff. And if you haven't got the link to Podmail, email me and I will give it to you. And then next week is on problem solving, and we've not got Pod Plus, so kind of they're my red flashing alerts to everybody. Sarah is on holiday and I'm on holiday, so no Pod Plus next week. But the week after that, we have hybrid working. So I'm giving you a little sneak peek of upcoming episodes, and that hybrid working episode is with somebody that I was like so happy to talk to, a guy called Thomas Chamorro Pramusic, who is a psychologist, and he's brilliant, and I could have talked to him all day. So that is the next 2 episodes that are coming up, and we will see you all very soon. I'm on holiday for the next 2 weeks, so you won't see me for a little while, but no one next week, and then Sarah for the week after. But thank you all, everybody. Sarah's put the link in chat for Podmail if anybody does want it. And we will see you all very soon. Thank you, everybody. See you soon. Take care. Bye. Bye.